All right, we'll be back from the break. We continue with business today. We look at now the requirements for small and medium-sized enterprises certification. A certificate of good standing certifies that a company is registered, is up to date on all step registration fees and required document filings, and is legally permitted to engage in business activities in the country. A certificate of good standing is an essential part of running your business. Every business needs a certificate of goods in order to attract more customers. Let us have more of this report.
Most people aspire to start their own business, but succeeding in the commercial marketplace is easier said than done. Companies led by inexperienced people unfamiliar with the legal requirements are susceptible to failure. Nevertheless, many business owners jump into the competitive marketplace without doing enough research and covering their legal bases. Registering a business protects the business identity, as Ronald Ahimbisiwe explains.
Start with your RSB. They have TIN numbers, at least for the business or for an individual person, the owner of the business. And then you should have at least a label of your product.
He adds that registering a business gives the assurance of attracting more customers.
It's been checked by an independent body and found it complying with the requirements. And two, you are saying, I am doing a good business and I'm competitive, and any person out there will be confident in your product. So there is confidence building. And of course, you will be, after building confidence, you'll have market growth. Once you get market growth, then you have business growth and economic growth finally. So those are some of the benefits.
Businesses should maintain the Strands requirements and the controls put in place to be certified.
The hygiene of the place, where you are working from, depending now on the product you are making, the labeling, how you are declaring your product to be, and what based on the standard requirements, and then the controls you put in there at raw material, at processing, and final product. Now, when you have such a small system, we are able to evaluate the compliance. We shall pick a sample and test it in the lab. And if the sample passes and the other requirements, the other controls are in place, then we are sure that there is consistency in your process, in your production, and we should be able to give you the certification.
Winnie Nakauchi, Margaret Nachiganda, Business Today, Smart 24 TV, driving business.
All right, now let's drive business into tourism. As to boost Uganda's economic structure, the Ministry of Tourism and other organizations have come up with a beauty pageant competition. The pageant competition will be held here in Uganda from the 16th to the 20th of August 2022, with the winners expected to represent Uganda in the international pageant competitions next year.
Honorable Bahinduka Martin Mogara, the State Minister for Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, has today expounded on how the beauty pageant competitions could build the tourism sector.
That talks about this country beyond these borders is business for us, because it creates awareness, the beauty of this country. And it's not the first time we are partnering with such pageants. We've done the same with Miss Tourism, Miss Uganda, and even some others to come. So we are glad to be part of this journey, and we are calling upon Ugandans, please support, because after this probably we shall be hosting the international event here. We expect so many participants and so many people coming into this country. Continue as a ministry to work with most of these to see how we support talent, the youth, but also champion the promotion of tourism in this country.
One of the organizers highlighted the benefits of the pageant competition to the Ugandan economy.
The contestants will be working with charities like Ashanagi Uganda for community sensitization and to talk about the importance of anti-violence against women. In my opinion, one of the biggest forms of violence is not providing access to education. And by Miss International contestants visiting our site in the week building up to the event, they will be inspiring orphaned girls in Nansana to continue their education and work hard for a better life.
Evelyn Namatov Chironde, Uganda's Miss International, shared with us the importance of participating in such competitions.
As Miss International, I've learned a lot, and I've been exposed, I've got an opportunity to showcase my talent, and I've been able to empower women in entrepreneurship of the United Nations Association of Uganda.
Desire Nambiru, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now in tonight's Coffee Court, we take an in-depth view of financial inclusion.
It's a pleasure and thank you for joining us on this Coffee Court, where we digest matters of national economy. Now, Bank of Uganda carried out a 5-year strategy to find out matters of financial inclusion. What were their findings, of course, amidst the pandemic of COVID-19? What is their recommendation? What did they find out, and what needs to be done? I speak to Bank of Uganda Director, Mr. Andrew Kawere. He's in charge of the National Payments System. Thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome.
You initiated what we call the annual financial inclusion, which it was a 5-year strategy. What was the objective of all this?
The National Financial Inclusion Strategy is anchored on about 5 areas. One is expansion of access to financial services. For this, we're talking about access to, say, bank branches or digital channels, basically to extend the financial services to the financial services consumers and reduce the access barriers. The second area is around growth of credit and related infrastructure to enable the population to have access to borrowing as part of production, the production cycle. Borrow, invest, and have a livelihood. The third area which is related is on digital infrastructure, but then the other areas relate to promotion of savings, promotion of insurance, promotion of investments, and things of the like. So over the past 5 years, Bank of Uganda, working with the Ministry of Finance, has been implementing that strategy, and a lot of milestones have been achieved. We've seen significant increase in access to financial services. In 2018, the FinScope survey indicated that only about 52% of Ugandans had access to formal financial services, while total access to financial services stood at 78%. Today, if you look at the Findex report, which was published by the World Bank a few weeks ago, it indicates that 66% of Ugandans have access to formal financial services, up from 52%. So we have made significant progress in terms of access to the financial services. Significant progress has been made in terms of delivery of services, especially through the agent network. Insurance has gone up, financial literacy has improved, although there is room for improvement. We've made strides in credit and so many other areas. So today's event is an opportunity to showcase what we've achieved and to devise means in terms of policy interventions which can help us to scale up some of those achievements.
You've talked about the 52%. Is this a good percentage if you're to take measurement?
No. It's not good, and it's below our target. So you had the permanent secretary today, Minister of Finance. He mentioned that our target in terms of access to financial services should be about 80%. So we were at 54% in 2018.
Okay.
Findex has put us at 66%. But remember, the 66% is only for the formal financial services. That is the bank accounts and the mobile money accounts. So we think that we are actually much higher than the 66%.
So should we say you've underscored?
No. It's not a question of underscoring.
What is
it's
it?
a question of doing a survey to particularly find out where we are. The Findex that I'm quoting is a World Bank survey.
Okay.
So Bank of Uganda, with our development partners, intend to run a financial inclusion indicators survey probably next year, and that will give us the actual position of where we are in terms of total access to financial service. I mean financial inclusion in general. Yeah. So the Findex is only access to bank accounts and mobile money accounts. But you know, there are so many other financial services providers who are not a bank or a microfinance deposit taking institution. And that is why I'm very hopeful that our real level of financial inclusion access to these services is significantly higher than the 66% indicated by Findex.
So regarding the findings, what exactly in detail have you found out as Bank of Uganda?
The other interesting finding is that there has been closure of the gender gap in terms of financial inclusion. In 2013, women had a very low score in terms of access. But today, according to Findex, that gap has been narrowed down to 2 percentage points between the men and women. Okay. And we're very happy, to see that development backed up with statistics, because women, the youth, refugees are some of the vulnerable groups that are at the core of our financial inclusion agenda.
Okay. So what is the recommendation in this report moving forward?
No, the report is not ours. I think we are using the report to devise solutions.
You've been a pillar in this.
As a central bank, of course.
Yes.
And that's why we have this forum today. We are listening to the stakeholders, both public and private, to share thoughts on what we need to do to scale up these very good results and to address the challenges that we have faced. For example, some of the things that have been flagged already, things such as the survey that I told you about. We need to do a survey. We need to scale up digital financial literacy, which is the theme for today's event. We need to promote digital financial literacy because the digital services have significantly driven financial inclusion. So those are some of the things that have come up already. But of course, today's workshop, we're looking forward to further comments and proposals for additional policy interventions.
Which key players have you engaged in all this?
No, we are working with so many development partners. Of course, the primary Ministry of Finance is a key stakeholder. We have other regulatory authorities, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, the Capital Markets Authority, the Uganda Communications Commission, Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, and then we have development partners such as the UNCDF. We have the financial sector deepening Uganda, and so many other participants in these discussions. A key other stakeholder is the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, who have been very, very supportive partners in this financial inclusion journey.
Okay. I don't see any common person in this, and you can't speak about financial inclusion and you neglect or leave out the common person.
No, the masses. If you listened to the speaker, Tilda, just a few minutes ago, she even recognized, the participants from the private sector. Now, one of the things Bank of Uganda has done is to train financial literacy trainers. We've empowered the public, to do training on our behalf, and we have, more than I think about 300 financial literacy trainers scattered across the country. So the private sector is a key player in this. Forget the private sector institutions, the banks, of course, as an example, the microfinance deposit taking institutions, the payment service providers, mobile money operators and the like. But we've also identified individuals who have been trained and empowered to support Bank of Uganda in this area.
And what is the role, if you emphasize that the private sector is a key critical partner, what is their responsibility in all this?
The private sector, first of all, delivers financial services, and that is the starting point. A bank, a microfinance institution, a mobile money operator, an insurance service provider, an investor, an investment advisor on the capital market side. So these, from a starting point, they deliver the financial services. So they are our partners in this.
Okay.
But beyond that, they are supporting the financial literacy agenda in terms of empowering the financial services consumers in terms of training these financial services consumers and things of the like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Between the 5 years, there have been issues of COVID-19. Has this had an impact on this kind of report?
Yes, COVID, first of all, disrupted economic activity and had very significant adverse effects, particularly around consumption and financial behavior of people. However, on the bright side, the pandemic also spurred a significant growth in digital financial services. A study by FSDU noted that more than 50% of Ugandans were accessing financial services digitally during the COVID pandemic. So much as there was disruption, the pandemic offered an opportunity through which financial services providers scaled up digital financial services and digital channels.
Okay.
And that was a key benefit from our point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Director, I know matters of national payment systems cannot be digested in a single minute. Of course, this is the Coffee Court. We've been having Mr. Andrew Kawere. He's acting director in charge of National Payment System, Bank of Uganda. Thank you for allowing to speak to us.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, the discussion on financial inclusion continues. My name is Fred Makubia, and I am joined by Mr. Alex Ochan. He's the head of finance inclusion at Bank of Uganda. Director, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
What is this strategy all about?
I will start by telling you that this strategy, which is called the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, that came into effect in 2017, to be specific, in October 2017, is looking at improving or increasing access to financial services for the population. But more important, not to just look at access, but also people using the financial services that they access to improve their financial well-being or financial security, for that matter.
So in between there, COVID-19 came in. Has this had an impact?
Absolutely, yes. On two fronts, I could say yes and no. On the yes part of it is that it impacted in a way that some of the programs that we needed to implement couldn't be implemented. And just to mention, by the way, the strategy is a multi-stakeholder strategy, not for Bank of Uganda alone. The Bank of Uganda sits as a secretariat for the strategy. So there are different players, including government agencies, ministries and departments, the private sector that is implementing. But as you know what happened during COVID, there were restrictions on travels. You couldn't engage stakeholders except going online, which was a bit difficult. So that was the negative impact on implementation of the strategy. The positive side of it is that it also came with the drive towards digital. And more especially, if you remember our payments, everything was digital, from transport sector to digital payments, that scaled up acceptance of digital payments by the population. Think about mobile money. Uptake of mobile money went up. Government itself was implementing some of the payments using mobile money. So I think it had a negative but also a positive side. Of course, COVID also taught people that you need to save, you need to prepare for bad days. Some of the findings that came out showed that people could not live for a given number of days using their savings, meaning that we have a lot of Ugandans who are doing hand to mouth. You get today, eat today, get today, eat today. So you don't have any buffer in case of any trouble.
Okay.
So it also taught Ugandans on the need to save and prepare for a bad day.
Did you find any missing link in between the process?
I could talk of the links in terms of the implementation. You know, when you're given a strategy, it's a paper. Then putting the paper in practice is another thing. So there was a bit of a delay at the beginning to put the entire implementation mechanism in place. We lost a bit of time, and also we got impacted by COVID in terms of how we move forward. But all that provides lessons on what do you do going next, and that is where we're going into now, the second strategy.
To what extent were the banks involved? Because you can't talk about Bank of Uganda and you don't talk about the other financial banks. To what extent were they involved?
You remember what I said? That it was a multi-stakeholder strategy. We have the regulators on one side, but also the players. We don't go out into the population to provide financial services. We provide an enabling environment for them to be able to thrive and go and provide the financial services. Think about agent banking regulation that came on board in 2017. That was on the regulator side. Can you give a law that enables the players in the market to provide agent banking services? Now, once that regulation is in place, then the players are able to onboard agents. And as I mentioned earlier on, we have in excess of about 27,000 agents spread across the country. Think about the NPS law that came into effect in 2020 and implementing regulations in 2021. We've provided the payment service providers with a platform to provide services to the population. As we speak, mobile money agents are in excess of about 460,000 spread across the country. So as a regulator, you provide that environment for the private sector to thrive. There are a number of other regulations that came into play during that period. I think I spoke about the security interest in movable property collateral, where border or somebody who has a motorbike can register that as a security, and they borrow against that facility.
Are you saying that this was a successful process?
By large, yes. By large, yes. Think about, we spoke about the level of financial inclusion. The percent of population that had access to financial services, if I base on the last survey we did in 2018, was about 58% of Ugandans. As we speak now, based on the World Bank recently released Global Findex, we are talking about 66% having access to financial services, being driven by largely mobile money or digital financial services. And by the way, when I talk about the 66%, I'm only talking about having an account. So think about having access to other financial services, which may not even be regulated, like VSLAs. People are accessing financial services, especially in the rural areas. Okay. So by far, I think it's been a good progress, but we can always do better.
Financial inclusion is one of the things government is looking up to drive us into what we call Vision 2040. What do you make of this, Director?
I think all strategies should be aligned to the national program. And you look at transforming Uganda from a peasantry to a modern society by 2040. And there are many corners of doing that. One of them is financial literacy, financial inclusion. And I'm happy that we are talking about the parish development model going to every parish. That is the lowest. And in fact, that is all aimed at achieving the bigger vision, which is Vision 2040, as indicated by His Excellency, the President. So what we are doing, we are all driving towards the same road, but using different approaches. Some are handling infrastructure, others are handling access to financial services. So it's a complete different mechanisms, but following the same road. At the end of the day, we are going to converge. I think what government has brought on board in the PDM is a very good vehicle for scaling financial inclusion. You look at having a circle in every parish. You know, if you combine that with other aspects of financial literacy, building the capacity of the borrowers at the parish level to use their funds well for the right purpose, then I think we're on the right, very good direction.
Thank you for connecting PDM to this. What makes you think this will really work out? We've had many programs for government on board. What really gives us the hope?
I think we need to start by believing. You're saying we've had many programs. Haven't they worked?
Director.
Haven't they worked? I think we need to start by have hope. Even the Bible says, if you start by saying you've had many programs, I'm very confident that the way we've started with the PDM, it should be able to work. I totally have no doubt about the PDM. And I think the Bank of Uganda as an institution is very supportive of the approach. You're taking financial services down to the population, but combined with other aspects. Actually, financial inclusion is just one of the pillars. There are other areas, modernizing agriculture, that are part of it in other pillars. Even issues around monitoring and evaluation or MIS, which I think is very important. If we can monitor well, I think it should be able to work.
I must say I'm afraid that these trainings take place in Serena, where the local persons don't come. Why can't we take these to the grounds where the local people...
Actually, this is not a training. This is not a training. This is an avenue that brings together stakeholders that are involved in implementing the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. We've brought on board commercial banks or financial services providers. We've brought on board the payment service providers. We have the development partners. We have the media like you who is taking information out there. Now, in the implementation, you go to the person who needs the service. So this is just an avenue for discussing at the technical level, then you go down to the implementation. What we want to get out of this event is what are these pain points that the local person faces?
And what are these?
You know?
You plan to sign up?
And that's what we want to get from this meeting. I think it's an avenue for discussions. You know, a commercial bank will know the challenges that a local person faces. But beyond this, we'll take it then up to develop the second strategy. And we'll have a couple of several other engagements, including going to the local person to understand what do they need, what are their user needs. Is it credit that is more pressing? Is it payment that is more pressing? But if you're getting credit, how do you use it? So this is exchange of information at the implementation side. That's why you have the media, you have the private sector, you have development partners talking about the forum. But then after this, and based on this information, you go to the users and ask them, what do you want? And that comes part of the strategy development. You recall I mentioned not having conducted a demand-side survey or ask the households on the other side. That is very critical as well in developing the second strategy.
Director, thank you for sparing time and allowing me to speak to us. That is it, what we do on the Coffee Court. Of course, we bring different technocrats to help us digest matters of national economy. Matters of financial inclusion are issues we can never ignore. Alex Ocham is the head of finance inclusion here at Bank of Uganda. My name is Fred Makubia. We drive your business.
Of financial inclusions are matters that you would definitely want to be part of. And with the Coffee Court, we ask the tough questions. Fred Makubia there with the details in there. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, meanwhile, with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on sign language. But first, let's have a recap of our top stories.
The government of Uganda asserts the progress in financial literacy and inclusion in Uganda. The Parliamentary Committee on ICT meets with different stakeholders to digest the Computer Misuse Amendment Bill 2022. Uganda signs a Memorandum of Understanding with Somalia to promote partnership between the two countries.
It is a good evening from us to you, this particular one, and thank you very much for being part of Business Today. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on sign language. Till tomorrow, have a blessed night. Good evening.